Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're the show that takes your source material and really digs into it, looking for those essential, sometimes surprising insights.
And today we're doing something, well, quite human, I suppose. We're looking at machinery, but asking if it can have a soul.
It feels a bit strange, doesn't it? Usually you look at tech and think, efficiency, speed, how much does it cost?
Exactly. But the sources you've gathered here, they force us to use a different measure, an emotional one.
Right, and the first idea they lay out is that, look, most machines are just functional. You know, your average office printer, maybe a Toyota Corolla, just wires, plastic, no heartbeat there.
No soul, basically. But then some machines do seem to have it. And the sources say this kind of industrial soul comes from two main things.
Okay, what are they?
First, the machine needs a flaw. Something recognizably, well, human almost. An imperfection.
A flaw, okay. And the second?
It needs to carry what the sources call the genetic fingerprint of a foolish and misguided inventor. Think Count Zeppelin, dreamers whose machines were, brilliantly flawed.
So it's not about being perfect.
Not at all. And it's really key to understand this list of soulful machines we're talking about. It wasn't picked using spreadsheets. It was picked by the heart, purely based on affection.
Which lets us talk about things that maybe weren't commercial successes. Glorious failures.
Precisely. Beautiful, impractical dreams.
Okay, but I need to push back a bit here. If the main criterion is just machines the author liked, isn't that just, well, personal bias? How do we know this isn't just sentimentality dressed up as analysis?
That's a fair point. I think the justification, according to the sources, lies in the aftermath. How much emotional weight does the machine carry when it's gone?
Ah, so if people genuinely mourn its passing, not for lost money, but for lost potential.
Exactly. That suggests soul, which takes us straight to maybe the prime example of a soulful failure, Concorde.
Right. Let's start with the tragedy of the Paris crash. The reaction to that was just immense. People really felt like they were mourning the machine itself.
Yeah, the sources compare the shock to, the death of a major public figure, Princess Diana level almost.
But amidst all that grief, you had the critics.
Oh, yeah. The Guardianista view, as the source puts it, the financial watchdogs, they saw the crash almost as an inevitable end to something fundamentally flawed, financially speaking.
And their argument was all about the numbers, right? $2.1 billion just to design it?
A great white elephant, they called it. Paid for by taxpayers, basically benefiting corporate types using it as a time-saving device.
Purely practical critique.
But the counter-argument flips that. It suggests the real benefit wasn't just for the elite few flying in it.
How so?
The emotional kick, the sheer spectacle that went to everyone on the ground who just looked up and saw this incredible shape tearing across the sky. Pure theater.
And the difficulty. That NASA quote is amazing.
Isn't it? Putting a man on the moon was easy compared to getting Concorde to work. It really underscores the challenge.
And that challenge wasn't just about going fast, it was about the heat, right?
Absolutely. Mach 2 generates incredible friction. The plane would physically stretch in flight by up to 7 inches.
7 inches.
Yeah.
So they had to design for that.
They had to. Sliding joints, flexible materials. It was constantly fighting physics just to hold itself together. That struggle that gives it character, soul.
Yet, ironically, the actual experience inside wasn't that thrilling.
Surprisingly mundane, apparently. Cramped seats, flying super high, 60,000 feet, double a 747, but still only 11 miles up. Not exactly the edge of space.
And breaking the sound barrier. Just a little bump.
No more exciting than a fairground ride, the source says.
So its end. The source calls it a giant leap backwards for mankind.
Yeah, because nothing replaced it. Nothing faster came along. It suggests we kind of shied away, got scared of that kind of progress.
And the final nail in the coffin wasn't that it was too fast, but too slow.
Too slow for the electronic age. Emails and video calls eventually made that physical speed less essential for business, a strange kind of obsolescence.
So, if Concorde's soul came partly from its flawed grandeur and collective ambition, what about machines driven by a single obsessive vision? That brings us to this idea of design DNA.
Exactly. The sources argue that the most soulful machines often carry the pure, undiluted vision of one person. Think Colin Chapman at Lotus or Enzo Ferrari. Their personality is the car's personality.
You see it in their philosophies.
Yeah.
Ettore Bugatti. Nothing is too beautiful or too expensive.
And Chapman's famous engineering mantra, simplify and add lightness. That's the DNA.
Which you don't get from, say, companies set up by committee or government decree.
Right. The source contrasts this with, Proton or Hyundai, saying they were basically told, make cars so locals can get off their oxen. Functional, but maybe lacking that initial spark.
Except Honda.
Honda gets a nod, yeah. Because of Mr. Honda's early personal vision, there's still a trace of that humanity.
And a modern example of getting back to that founding vision. The Rolls-Royce Phantom.
Absolutely. When BMW took over Rolls-Royce, they didn't just raid the BMW parts bin. They went back to Sir Henry Royce's core idea: strive for perfection in everything you do.
And the result?
Well, the source flat out calls the Phantom quite simply the best car in the world. But its perfection isn't about speed, it's about isolation.
Isolation, how do you mean?
It's so quiet, so smooth, the controls so minimal that you become totally detached from the act of driving. It's almost psychologically isolating.
That's where that anecdote comes in, right? The driver trying to overtake.
While already in the outside lane, yeah.
Okay.
Because they were just so relaxed, so removed from the reality of the motorway. That's the goal of that kind of luxury soul total cocooning.
Okay, so from ultimate detachment to maybe ultimate aesthetic beauty. The Riva Aquarama speedboat, 1965.
Oh, the Aquarama. Described as the most jaw-dropping, eye-watering, hand-biting man-made spectacle of all time. Quite the description.
And the creator, Carlo Riva, sounds like he was utterly obsessive.
Pathologically so. Doubled his prices just to get rid of annoying racing teams. Color-coded his staff's coats. Only used the absolute best wood.
And the chrome, 30 microns thick.
Yeah, compared to maybe 1.5 on a standard Italian car back then. It's just radical over-engineering, almost wasteful.
But that's part of the soul.
That's exactly it. He'd spent up to 3,000 hours building one boat, and his timing was perfect. The jet set hitting the south of France. The Aquarama became this sort of mahogany passport to the high life.
Yeah.
Exquisite detail, radical beauty, perfect timing. That's soul.
All right, let's shift gears dramatically. From exquisite beauty to something brutally effective, finding soul in simplicity and reliability. The AK-47.
Yeah, quite a pivot. Designed by Mikhail Kalashnikov, he was wounded in a hospital during Stalingrad, apparently.
When he saw the need.
He realized Soviet soldiers just didn't have a good personal automatic weapon for close-quarters city fighting, unlike the Germans with their MP-44, so he decided to design one.
But its soul, according to the source, is partly born from a pretty serious technical flaw.
That's the paradox. It's heavy, the sights aren't great, but the big one is the safety switch.
Explain that.
To get from safe to single shot, you have to click past fully automatic. And doing that makes this really loud, distinctive clack sound.
Which, in a firefight,
is terrible. You might accidentally go full auto, waste ammo, and worse, that clack just screams, "Here I am!" to every enemy nearby. Forget stealth.
you can get.
And yet it's arguably the most successful firearm in history, 70 million made. Why?
Simplicity.
Incredible simplicity. The source jokes it ties with the mousetrap for being the least complicated machine ever.
And reliability. The stories are legendary.
Totally. You can bash it, crash it, and bury it for months in a swamp, pull it out, and it'll likely still fire.
And the source argues that what pushes it towards being an art form with soul is the lack of commercial intent.
Right. Kalashnikov wasn't trying to get rich. He lived on his army pension. The gun's terrifying impact, supposedly killing more people than the Hiroshima and Nagasaki bombs combined, stems directly from that brutal simplicity and reliability, not from market strategy. It's a strange kind of soul.
Okay, looking back further in history now, machines whose vision was maybe too far ahead of their time. Isambard Kingdom Brunel's SS Great Britain. The source calls it Genesis.
Yeah, 50 years ahead of its time. Brunel was just rejecting everything conventional. Sails, paddle wheels, wooden hulls, nope.
He called wooden paddles completely wrong for what was actually a machine. Bold.
Incredibly bold.
Yeah.
He insisted on the first proper ocean-going iron hull and a propeller. Nobody was really doing that at scale.
And the scale itself was mind-blowing for the era.
Huge. 50% longer than its rivals, 3 times the internal space, the biggest moving object humans had ever built at that point.
Like Concorde later. The reality didn't quite match the vision initially.
Operationally, it was tough, it was slow, apparently rolled horribly in the sea. The propeller tech wasn't quite there yet. Financially, a disaster.
Sold off cheap after just a few trips.
Yeah. Sold for £25,000. Ended its days as a coal storage hulk in the Falklands, believe it or not.
So a failure in its own time. But the soul comes from the foresight.
Absolutely. Brunel was, as the source puts it, thinking 21st century thoughts in a 19th century world.
And the core technologies, the iron hull, the screw propeller they eventually won out.
Completely. They defined the future of shipping. Its arrival in New York was apparently seen as this huge blow to American ego, only matched maybe by Concorde arriving 150 years later. The long-term vindication gives it that historical soul.
And if we want a land-based example of that kind of pioneering, large-scale functional art, the Hoover Dam?
Yeah, it's not moving in the same way, but it's a massive engine run by water. And it's presented not just as engineering, but as art.
6.6 million tons of concrete. But beautiful?
Every bit as beautiful as the canyon in which it sits, the source says. Those Art Deco towers, that preposterous slope, it's a monument to human will, engineering, and aesthetics, all fused together.
Okay, so wrapping this up, we've seen soul in different forms. Concorde's beautiful, painful failure, Riva's obsessive perfection, the AK-47's brutal, simple reliability, the SS Great Britain's failed, visionary genesis. What's the common thread here for you, the listener?
I think it really boils down to the power of the story, doesn't it? The narrative. Often it's got very little to do with commercial success or even day-to-day usefulness. Soul emerges when the machine's story becomes bigger than its mechanics, when it becomes legend.
And for a final thought, something provocative. The source points to a machine whose soul is tied to terrifying endurance. The B-52 bomber.
Yeah, the Stratofortress. A machine designed, let's be blunt, with one primary purpose: to drop atom bombs on men, women, and children. Its entire reason for being is inherently frightening.
And the last one rolled off the line in, what, the mid-1960s?
Yet it's still flying, still in active service. And the plan is to keep it flying until maybe 2045.
That's almost a century of service life for a nuclear bomber.
That sheer longevity combined with its dark original purpose, that gives it a profound, unsettling soul. The source suggests its continued presence is this stark reminder humming away in the background of our ordinary lives.
A reminder that
Technological potential, for good or ill, is always there. And that maybe, just maybe, the world is not quite as safe a place as we like to think.